One idea that we had at orientation is like putting a side by side of like how much hospital birth costs versus how much we cost, so people can see like, oh, because I was telling her, I'm like, the orientation that I did, she was like, that's it? That's not bad at all. When usually people are like, oh my God, it's so much. And you're like, it's really not.
And just looking at with the billing, you know, how the insurances contract with different providers, and then what the usual and customary is very different, because they're contracted with, you know, different birth centers, you know, different providers for maybe $4,000, $6,000, but yet they'll allow $6,000 to $7,000, somewhere in between there. So, but they'll lowball them so they don't have to pay. But then, you know, the hospitals and facilities like that have anesthesia and have all this other stuff that isn't included, stuff that we can
it doesn't make
bill
any
for.
sense.
Right?
Like, as an insurance person, I would be like, let's go for the cheaper route and not like, oh sure, I'll give you $250 for ibuprofen at the hospital. And like, you can get them at the $1.25 store. Like,
Right, they don't.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's because they're, you know, out of network is, you know, most people do have out of network.
Which I feel like isn't talked about enough, or
It's never talked about because they don't want them to go out of network.
But even just like your insurance as a whole, like I know they send you that packet and it's like all of these words and cute little pictorials, and you're like, okay, but I still don't really
What does that
know.
mean?
Yeah, like I just look for like my copay and my deductible if that's the thing. But like there's so much other stuff that's included in that.
Yeah.
And you don't really know. Like I just found out that you can get your pump parts, like replacement parts through insurance, like on like a monthly or however often you need them cycle. And I was like, I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah.
About it.
It's almost like they hide it from you.
Yeah.
They don't want you. And I mean, it's getting harder. It's getting harder. Their deductibles are getting higher. You know, copays are getting higher. You know, obviously the rejection rate, meaning when we submit a bill to the insurance companies, they're, you know, not rejection, what is it? Well, they're basically rejecting, yes, and then you have to resubmit, is almost every time. And that's hours of work. And that's why...
Definitely need a biller.
Yeah.
Well, and we have a couple to choose from, which the client would pay them $25 to do the verification of benefits, and
I think that's like the smartest move, because I don't know, like hearing it from a biller versus hearing it from the midwife, for me it just sounds like, okay, like this is your area of expertise. Like I feel like they'll say words and hit key points that I am not, like I'm just like, you need to pay.
right.
I need money from you.
Right. Then people are like, well, this, and this, and like breaking that down.
Right.
But to your point of like things are going up everywhere, but the quality of care is not changing in certain aspects. So
Or declining.
Yes. I'm trying to be nice.
I'm not.
But it is changing, and I think people get so caught up in the money versus like the quality of care that you're getting. And like, I don't know, when I think about my own experiences, like even just going to the pediatrician, I don't get, like I'll ask a question and it's not like how I would respond to it. Like I would take the time to be like, did that make sense to you? Do you feel more comfortable? Whereas she was just like, oh yeah, that's normal. And then we move on to the next thing, even though I'm still sitting there like, wait, but I have more questions. So I think like people don't realize that that is the type of care that they're getting when they sign up for out of hospital care, and they don't put the value with it.
No. No.
It's a weird thing.
Well, I think that as a society, we've become accustomed to one, sitting in a waiting room for hours, you know, and then getting taken back to the room and waiting for an hour, and then they come in, and you're lucky if they spend 15 minutes with you.
Yeah.
Literally, my last doctor's appointment literally was less than 5 minutes that he was in the room with me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And yet, you know, he got a couple of $1,000. You know, it's, you know, because it was for a surgery check. But it's like, okay, looks good. Let me take a couple of pictures, and that was it.
And then just going. It's so weird. I couldn't imagine that as a provider, just spending 5 minutes with somebody.
I
Like,
know.
Spending 5 minutes.
there's too much happening, and so much that can be missed in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. That's why I like that we, you know, set aside our visits for people and, you know, really take the time to get to know them and their families and really bond with them, because they're not just a number or a name. Like,
Has anybody asked or signed up for, I guess, the like concierge service?
we have one.
We do.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm doing her initial in a couple weeks.
Okay.
She lives in
Okay.
maybe
That's like
It's right over there.
Yeah,
That's like,
yeah.
that's
I was like, it's not that far.
Annette's area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not far.
Yeah, and she's already like 25 weeks, so I made her.
a little kid.
No.
Oh.
What am I saying? The financial contract the other day, and I sent it to her. She's gonna be paying like.
Wow. I mean,
But that's what they want, so I'm like, okay.
if they can afford it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that people who understand the quality, and you know, they get it. They can, you know, they can equate like, okay, I'm not just, you know, buying a car. I'm having a baby. I'm bringing life into this world, and I'm putting my hands in the care of providers who, you know, are educated and responsible and conscientious, but also, you know, care about us as a family unit. And also the continuity of care is really important, which I think doesn't happen at other places, which we know doesn't happen at other places. They're just sent, you know, there you go. And then, you know, they're, you know, the people go to the hospital, and then there's, you know, a lack of that continuity of care. And I think that that's, you know, such a, you know, what's the word? It's just not, you know, appropriate for continuity of care for women. And it doesn't make them feel supported and loved and through their process.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes that's kind of hard. Not hard for me, but sometimes like I feel like their expectations are so low, and then when I'm like, oh, this is the care that I provide regardless of where we are, then sometimes I'm like, man, is it? Am I really doing something good? Like, is this quality care? They don't really, but then you see that shift as you grow with someone for 40 weeks, like you see, or even afterwards when they have the baby and they're like, oh my God, I could not do that without you. A lot of times I'm like, you really could have, but like, I think that's me taking away from the value of what we do and what we provide to people. Because I mean, I can easily say that, like, I don't know if my experience would have been what it was if you weren't there. And that's essentially the same thing. Like, it's just being there and being present and having that trust of like, okay, like I know Michelle's got me, I know Nicole's got me, like we're good. And I think as society as a whole has lost that viewpoint almost of like, oh, I don't know. Like most people are like, oh, I just go and do what my OB tells me to do. And it's just like, one, that baby is not going to come with the manual and you're going to have to figure it out. So starting now is a good
from
time.
experience?
Starting that early of being that advocate for yourself and for your baby is really important. But I think using that terminology in what we do, like you don't really have to be an advocate for yourself in midwifery care.
No.
Like you kind of come in and say like, hey, these are my expectations, and every midwife that I know is kind of like, all right, cool, like yeah, let's do it. Whereas friends or relatives who have been in not out of hospital care are like, that's the thing, like what is that? So you come to the house and it's like, yeah, I go to people's houses all the time. It's just, I don't know, it's weird.
And to not let, I know I put that post up that one time about, what is the reason why you wouldn't want to have a home birth? And I expect everyone to say money. And yet the majority, 95% said my house, my house isn't clean enough, or, there's not enough room, or there's, XYZ. And I was like, wow, I was really taken back by that because for one, that's never in our mind.
Right.
And I've been in apartments, I've been in, tiny little places. There's enough space for everything. I mean,
I don't think, like, it's not like I'm going to a home birth and being like, I don't remember. I might be driving and be like, so I've been in this area before.
Yes.
I've probably got a baby. Oh yeah, down that street.
Yeah.
And like,
exactly
I don't remember anything else except for one house, and that's because it was an amazing house, and I was like, I want to live here. But other than that, I don't. Like, I'm not worried about that. I'm more so worried about them, and their experience.
Right. We're not judging if they didn't vacuum that day or if they have pets or whatever. Like, we're just there for them and the baby. And
I'm kind of ashamed to admit this, but like I mopped the floor for the first time yesterday in like weeks. So I'm not gonna be at someone's like if I see it, I'm gonna be like, oh, it's normal, cool. Like
we all know. We have lives, we have kids, we have pets, some, one of our, clients in care was like, well, yeah, one of the reasons why we weren't really sure was because we used to have a dog and it was shedded everywhere. And they're like, well, we'll probably be finding hair forever. And I said, I'm like, I have literally, Mom has been laying there. I've helped with breastfeeding, but had to lean over the dog, the Labrador, because
they want to be involved.
Right. So I'm like, I don't, it doesn't.
As long as it's not harming me,
right.
I'm not thinking about that. Like, I'm going through the steps of things of like, let me make sure everything's where it needs to be. And if something happens, like, this is what I do. Just to kind of keep it here in the front of my brain. I'm not thinking about the mess or the dog or anything.
No.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that dog literally laid at not the foot, when I say footed bed, I mean off the bed, but literally just laid there the entire time throughout labor and delivery. And then afterwards wanted to be up with his mom.
Yeah.
And because the bed was pushed against the wall, it was Mom, big dog, and me. And leaning over, helping her, while her partner was getting food. And so, and she's like, oh, do you want the, I'm like, I'm fine. As long as I can reach you and I can help you, the dog is fine.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's not a dog, it's going to be another kid. Like, there's always going to be somebody there.
Right. Right.
But yeah, it just makes it more special when...
Well, animals are part of your family.
Exactly.
Yeah. Home birth is really special when everyone can be included.
Yeah, I love that.
And you know how we ask about like, so what are the plans for your kids?
Mm-hmm.
And they're always like, can they be there? And I'm like, well, one is their house.
Mhm.
I'm the guest, so I don't mind either way. I'm gonna do what I have to do regardless. But I love how people are like, is that a thing? It's like, yeah, that's how we normalize it when they're
Mhm.
there and they see it.
Yeah.
They're not like, you want to have your baby at home? I don't know. Whenever people hear that, they just imagine some wild shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, we're legit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I've got all the things, oxygen,
Mm-hmm.
meds to stop hemorrhages. I can suture. Like
Mhm.
I'm not just showing up with some kitchen gloves and asking for pots of water.
Right.
And that brings up, the question of what's the difference between the birth center birth and home birth.
Yeah.
And the answer is there's not, except for location.
Mm-hmm.
You
Either
know?
you come to us or we come to you.
Right, right. And, it's the same supplies, the same instruments. I said the only thing is that I'm a little more of a slob at a birth center because I know there's someone there to pick up after me versus at a home. We just walk by and we just, throw stuff in the trash because we're more,
Conscientious.
consistent. Yeah. But I said there isn't any difference. It's the same providers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different location. And I think getting people to understand that, to be honest, being in your own home and laboring in your own home is actually where they feel safest
Mhm.
and where they're more comfortable.
Yeah.
And to be honest, what is the thing we tell them? We want you to stay at home as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And now it is, that we, go to their homes on a regular basis now. It is, being able to tuck them in bed and make sure that they've eaten, or, sometimes we end up feeding them, or we're taking care of the kids while they're eating and bonding.
It's such a cool experience now. I remember being a student and being like, oh, now I want to be a home birth midwife. Like, put me in a birth center so like I don't have to keep up with the things. Now I definitely have to keep up with the things. I mean, y'all know. But it's so special when you just like walk out. I don't know, I'm always like looking because usually it's the middle of the night and I like look at the other houses and I'm like, these people don't know that like life
Exactly.
just happened in here.
Exactly.
And,
I
like,
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things too.
Same with apartments too. It's like they have no idea their neighbor just had a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know. That's a question I always ask too. Like, did you tell your neighbors? Because if you're, if you're
A little more vocal.
if your walls are thin, like so, but if police come, they come. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, I think there's just that number about home birth and birth center birth, which is if that's, people are allowed to choose whatever they want. That's what we're about, obviously, is choices. But to be honest, there really isn't a difference.
Yeah.
And
I think the difference more so lies in the clients, to whereas like I could see if I have 5 kids who I would be thinking about wouldn't be able to like surrender and let my body do what it needed to do, then like, yeah, let's be at the birth center where there's space and I can be away from my kids for a little bit to do this thing and then come back to them. Or people who are just very much on the fence about being out of the hospital to begin with. I think the birth center gives them a different level of comfort than a home birth does.
It's a good middle ground.
But I think there's just something very special about home birth that everybody should at least have the opportunity to try to get that experience.
and know they have the option. And that's one thing a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but well, it is a lot, because women still don't know that they have options to where they birth or how they birth or their choice in care provider. They think that it's, oh, I've chosen this person, I can never switch. And it is like, no, that's not the case. We can have an open conversation, and that we take people into care regardless. Obviously we're not taking them into care at 37 weeks, but as long as they have their paperwork, they're low risk, we have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, then we welcome them into care late prenatal care. So
Yeah.
as long as we have everything that's within our law.
Yeah, and let people understand, like, it's going to take work. I mean, essentially, your body's going to birth your baby, but there's a lot of mental work that goes into it, and just kind of preparing, even though nothing can prepare you for a baby. But there is a work that
you're not teaching any more classes.
Nothing you do is going to be right, and it's always guess. Until they're like, 12 weeks, then I don't know, you got a million options. But up until then, it's always gas. So,
That's
your baby
life.
won't stop crying, it's gas.
Yeah.
Bicycle legs, get it out.
Great water. Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we hit all the points.
I think so.